Imagine flying 8,000 miles across the globe, right?
Huge trip.
Exactly. You've spent thousands of dollars on gear. You've, trained your body for months to handle the extreme altitude, and you finally arrived in the Himalayas.
Right, the absolute dream for so many people.
It is. Your dream is to hike into some of these, completely remote, untouched corners of the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
But then you step up to the permit office, ready to go on this life-changing journey, and the official behind the desk just looks at you, shakes their head, and basically says you aren't allowed into the mountain.
Oh, it's just devastating. And the reason why is the crazy part.
Right. Why? Because you don't have a friend with you.
Yeah. It sounds like a joke, but it's not.
Not at all. I mean, for decades, that has been the absurd, just incredibly frustrating reality for solo trekkers in Nepal. But today, the velvet rope just finally dropped.
It really did. It's a monumental shift. I mean, what we're looking at here is the dismantling of a barrier that has dictated the logistics of high-altitude tourism for a whole generation.
Welcome, everyone, to today's exploration. We've got some really, really great news for solo trekkers planning treks to Nepal.
Mm.
And I mean, genuinely industry-altering news.
Oh, for sure.
Are you ready for this? Nepal is officially going to allow solo trekkers to obtain restricted area permits so long as they have a mandatory trekking guide.
I can't overstate how massive this announcement is for the international outdoor community.
It's earth-shattering. So to navigate exactly what this means, we are basing our entire discussion today on a brand new travel article written just this week by David Ways.
Who is fantastic, by the way.
Absolutely. For those of you who might not know, David is a highly respected Nepal guidebook author. He's someone who has, lived and breathed the logistics of the Himalayas for years.
Yeah, he really knows the ground truth better than almost anyone.
Exactly. So his recent update is kind of the grounding resource for everything we're going to unpack today.
And, the historical weight of this change is just profound. This isn't just some minor administrative tweak buried in a government gazette somewhere.
Right.
This is the culmination of something the entire trekking community has been begging, lobbying, and petitioning for over the last 20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, it's been 2 decades of travelers and local agencies just trying to navigate a system that felt, honestly, entirely disconnected from the reality of modern travel.
Well, let's dive into that history before we celebrate the present too much, because the rule used to be that restricted area treks, these incredibly sensitive border-adjacent regions, were strictly only open to groups of 2 or more non-Nepali trekkers.
Right, the group of 2 minimum.
Exactly. And the logic, according to the authorities, was supposedly rooted in conservation. They believed that by artificially forcing people to pair up, it would create a logistical bottleneck.
Which theoretically would lessen the total number of people visiting these really fragile ecological zones.
Right. Make it harder to go and fewer people will go.
Yeah, that was the official, publicly stated rationale. And as David Ways notes in his article, it came from a genuine, albeit deeply flawed, desire for preservation.
Right. They meant well.
They did. But the authorities kind of assumed human behavior would just simply bend to the bureaucratic mandate. If you were alone, you would just choose a different non-restricted route.
Like the standard Everest Base Camp trail or something.
Exactly. They figured you'd just go somewhere else.
But wait, before we completely dismiss the old 2-person rule as just some misguided preservation attempt, let's look at the financial math here.
Oh, the math is fascinating.
Right. Because if I am a solo traveler and the government forces me to buy a permit for myself, plus a second permit for a non-existent partner just to satisfy the paperwork, the government is literally doubling its revenue on solo travelers without adding a single extra footprint to the physical trail.
Exactly.
So, I mean, from a purely cynical administrative standpoint, wasn't that highly efficient for their treasury? Why would they ever want to kill a rule that essentially acts as a 100% tax markup on solo adventurers?
That is an excellent pushback. And honestly, it strikes right at the heart of why this rule lasted as long as it did.
It makes sense financially.
Right. Yes, in the short term, it functioned as a highly lucrative, albeit unwritten, solo travel tax. And it birthed the infamous era of the ghost permits.
Oh man, the phantom partners.
Yes.
For anyone who hasn't experienced this bizarre ritual, let me just paint the picture for you. You are a solo traveler. You fly into Kathmandu. You are fit, prepared, and desperate to trek the Manaslu circuit.
Right. You're ready to go.
But the trekking agency tells you about the 2-person minimum. So what do?
You pay up.
You literally hand over the cash for a second permit. And then the agency rummages through their files, finds a photocopy of a passport from some tourist who left the country 3 years ago, or they just simply invent a name.
Yeah, they literally register Phantom Phil as your trekking partner.
Exactly. You pay Phil's fee, the government collects the double revenue, and you walk into the mountains entirely alone with your guide.
Exactly. You paid for Phantom Phil, the agency processed Phantom Phil, and the authorities at the checkpoints. They look at the paperwork, see Phantom Phil was mysteriously absent from the physical trail today.
Oh, Phil's just feeling a bit sick back at the lodge.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And they stamped you through anyway. It was this massive open secret.
It's wild.
It is. But to answer your question about why they would finally kill this golden goose, the long-term brand damage to Nepal's tourism sector was really starting to outweigh the short-term cash grab.
I can imagine. People hate feeling scammed.
Exactly. It bred immense resentment. Solo trekkers felt extorted, It made the system look corrupt and archaic.
Yeah, which just drives highly lucrative independent travelers to competing mountain destinations in South America or Central Asia, where the rules actually make logical sense.
Precisely. It was a completely ridiculous hoop to jump through. And it punished the exact type of low-impact, high-value traveler the country wants to attract.
So our mission for today's analysis is clear. We are going to dissect this brand new announcement because while the ghost permit era is officially dead, the new era is already sparking massive chaotic rumors online.
Oh, the internet is having a field day with this.
They really are. So we are going to clear up the internet confusion, lay out the absolute non-negotiable rules that are still firmly in place, and give you the inside scoop on when this actually physically goes into effect on the ground.
Because, the distance between a government press release and a functioning reality at a mountain checkpoint can be a very long, very complicated road.
Yeah, precisely. Let's start with the facts. On March 22, 2026, the Ministry of Home Affairs, specifically the Department of Immigration, dropped this news. What was the exact core of the announcement?
So the core directive from the Ministry of Home Affairs officially struck the minimum two-person foreign traveler requirement from the mandate for restricted areas.
Wow, just gone.
The barrier is legally gone. As a solo traveler, you are now only required to pay the single permit fee for yourself.
But, and this is a massive but that we need to address right now, directly to you listening, we need to stop the internet rumors dead in their tracks.
Seriously, it's getting out of hand.
It is. The moment this news hit, travel forums, Reddit threads, and social media absolutely exploded with a very specific and very wrong interpretation.
Oh yeah, I saw it everywhere.
People currently believe this means you can sit on your couch at home, open your laptop, log on to a Nepali government website, pay with your credit card, and boom, your solo restricted area permit is emailed to you like an e-visa.
Yeah, that's just no.
I want to be crystal clear to everyone listening. That is absolutely false.
It is a really dangerous misconception that is going to lead to a lot of ruined vacations, honestly.
Yeah, people showing up at the airport thinking they're good to go.
Exactly. And we have to look at the mechanism of why this rumor started, because it perfectly illustrates how digital infrastructure can kind of create a false illusion of public accessibility. The entire confusion stems from the existence of a digital portal operated by the Department of Immigration.
Right, because there is a portal. That part isn't a myth.
No, the portal is very real.
Yeah.
But it is fundamentally a B2B system, a business-to-business backend. It is exclusively built for and accessible to officially registered Nepali trekking agencies. It is not a public-facing retail site for the consumer.
Okay, so how does it actually work then?
The way this technology actually works is that you, the traveler, must apply for your standard tourist visa in advance.
Right.
Once you have that visa number, you provide it to your hired trekking agency in Kathmandu.
Right.
Then, the agent logs into their secured portal, inputs your visa data, and secures your restricted area permit before your flight even lands.
And as David Ways highlights in his travel article, this back-end portal capability for agents isn't even part of the new announcement.
Exactly.
That specific digital infrastructure has been active for the last 2 years.
Yeah, the technological capability is old news in the industry. What really triggered the chaos this week was how the official Nepal Tourism Board, the NTB, chose to communicate the solo permit rule change.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, they released an announcement that was, frankly, terribly worded.
Bureaucracy at its finest.
Right. They conflated the removal of the two-person rule with the existence of the digital portal. The phrasing made it sound to the layman like the portal itself had been suddenly opened to the global public to facilitate these new solo permits.
They basically threw a handful of bureaucratic buzzwords into a blender, right? And just poured out a press release that made everyone think Nepal just invented the Amazon Prime of trekking permits.
Exactly. Next day delivery on your Manaslu permit.
Right. So to drive this point home, so there is zero ambiguity, as a single trekker, you must apply through a registered local trekking agency.
Absolutely non-negotiable.
You cannot bypass the local Nepali infrastructure. The agency is the sole key holder to that permit.
Which is, honestly, a feature, not a bug, of their tourism model. The agency system is the bedrock of the local economy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But before we get deeper into the financial ecosystem, we should probably address the geography. We keep using the term restricted areas.
Yes, and I think we need to elevate this part of the conversation because if you are deeply invested in Himalayan travel, you already know we aren't talking about like military black sites or secret government facilities.
No Area 51s here.
Exactly. We all know regions like Dolpa and Upper Mustang are highly restricted due to their fragile environments. But the exact geopolitical and ecological math behind why these specific borders are drawn is rarely talked about in detail.
It really isn't.
Like, how much of this restriction is actually about ecology and how much is about keeping tourists away from sensitive international checkpoints?
It's a profound mix of both, wrapped into what we can call a triad of sensitivities: ecological, cultural, and geopolitical.
Okay, break that down for us.
Let's look at the regions first.
Right.
We're talking about Upper Mustang, which is this arid, high-altitude desert that geographically and culturally feels like an extension of the Tibetan Plateau.
Stunning place.
Oh, gorgeous. Then we have Dolpo, a region so remote it is famous for snow leopards and the preservation of the ancient Bon religion.
Right.
There is the Manaslu circuit, dominated by the 8th highest mountain in the world, Kanchenjunga in the far east, bordering India and Tibet, featuring the world's 3rd highest peak. And the Sum Valley, historically known as the Hidden Valley of Nonviolence, packed with ancient Buddha monasteries.
Wow. Okay, so let's break down that triad you mentioned. Start with ecology. We hear the word fragile thrown around a lot in outdoor recreation, right? Like a meadow in California is fragile.
Sure.
But high-altitude fragility is a completely different mechanism, isn't it?
It is a completely different biological reality.
Yeah.
I mean, when you are trekking in Sum Valley or Upper Mustang at 4,000 or 5,000 meters, you are entering an environment where the ambient temperature and a severe lack of oxygen fundamentally alter the rate of decomposition.
Right, things just don't break down.
Exactly. If you throw an apple core on the ground in a tropical rainforest, it rots and returns to the soil in days.
Yeah.
If you leave organic waste, and yes, that includes human waste, to 5,000 meters, it essentially freeze-dries.
Oh, wow. That's a vivid image.
It is. It can sit there for years, completely unchanged. The landscape has almost zero biological capacity to absorb the footprint of thousands of hikers.
Right, so it's not just about trampling a rare flower.
No, the ecology is biologically static.
Ugh.
Unregulated foot traffic doesn't just damage the flora, it creates a permanent toxic buildup of waste.
There's a stark visual, and then there's the cultural pillar of that triad.
Right. Take Dolpo, for instance. You mentioned the Bon religion earlier.
Yeah.
Bon is this ancient animistic spiritual tradition that actually predates the introduction of Buddhism in Tibet.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it was that old.
It is, and it is deeply intrinsically tied to the specific landscape, the mountains, the rivers, the wind. The communities in Dolpo have preserved this unbroken spiritual lineage for thousands of years, specifically because of their geographical isolation.
Wow, so they've basically been a time capsule.
Exactly. So if the government suddenly removed the restricted status and allowed 50,000 unguided tourists to flood in every season,
Yeah, that would be disastrous.
it would bring mass commercialization, Western expectations, and just unfiltered global culture. You don't just lose a quiet village. You risk irreparably eroding a living museum of human anthropology. The permits act as a cultural buffer.
That makes total sense. And that leads us to the third, and perhaps most rigidly enforced, pillar, the geopolitics, the Tibet border.
Historically, this is actually the most sensitive aspect of the restricted zones. Following the geopolitical shifts in the 1950s, the borders between Nepal and the Tibet Autonomous Region of China became heavily scrutinized.
Right, lots of tension there.
Exactly. For a long time, areas like Upper Mustang were essentially demilitarized zones and at times havens for Tibetan resistance fighters.
Oh, wow.
Today, the Nepali government maintains incredibly complex, delicate diplomatic relations with its northern neighbor. They simply cannot afford to have unvetted, unguided foreign nationals wandering accidentally or purposely across unmarked high-altitude mountain passes into Chinese territory.
Yeah, that would be an international incident waiting to happen.
Exactly. The restricted permit isn't just an ecological fee, it is a domestic security measure. It ensures the Nepali government can account for the exact location of every single foreign national operating near that sensitive frontier.
I want to try a different way of visualizing this just to put it in perspective for everyone listening.
Go for it.
Think of the main world-famous trekking routes in Nepal, like the paved trails of the Annapurna Circuit or the Khumbu Valley leading to Everest.
Mm-hmm.
Those routes are like a paved highway. They are robust. They have the lodges, the waste management protocols, and the infrastructure to handle the heavy freight of thousands upon thousands of trekkers every single month.
Exactly. They are built for volume.
But these restricted areas, Upper Mustang, Dolpa, Kanchenjunga, they are not highways. They are like a suspension bridge made of incredibly old vines.
Oh, I like that.
Right. It is breathtakingly beautiful. It transports you to a place time forgot, but has a strict weight limit. If you put too much weight on it at once, if you let a massive crowd run across it unmanaged, the vines snap, and the entire ecosystem collapses into the gorge.
That is spot on.
So the restricted area permit is basically the toll booth ensuring only a safe, sustainable amount of weight is on the bridge at any given time.
That is a perfect analogy. The vines simply cannot bear the load of mass tourism. And to add a crucial logistical footnote to your toll booth analogy,
Yeah.
just because you pay the premium for the restricted area permit does not mean you are exempt from the standard fees.
Ah, right, the fine print.
Exactly. Anyone planning this needs to understand that a restricted area permit does not cancel out the need for normal national park permits.
Wait, so you have to buy both?
Yes, you are still entering a national park like the Manaslu Conservation Area. You are just also entering a highly regulated subzone within it. You must obtain both sets of documents.
Okay, that's really important to note. So we've established the landscape. The two-person minimum is gone. Phantom Phil has been officially retired.
R.I.P. Phantom Phil.
Right. You can be a solo traveler paying for a single permit via an agency, but moving from a group of two to a solo traveler does not mean you are going it alone in the wilderness.
No. And this is where the excitement of the announcement meets the hard reality of the fine print.
Exactly. And I want to emphasize this heavily to everyone listening. Completely, 100% independent, unsupported trekking in these restricted areas is still fundamentally illegal.
Yep.
A licensed trekking guide is absolutely mandatory. You cannot just grab your freshly printed solo permit from your agency in Kathmandu, say thank you, and walk off into the Mustang Desert by yourself.
A lot of veteran trekkers chafe at this, honestly.
I'm sure they do.
They think, I've navigated the Alps, I've hiked the Pacific Crest and Rail alone, it's a vast wilderness. Who is really going to stop me from just walking past the signs?
Well, the answer is the military.
Precisely. The Nepali military and the armed police force.
Yeah, that's not a suggestion.
No, this is not an honor system where a park ranger might randomly ask to see your ticket on a trail. There are established, fortified, hard checkpoints stationed at the entry and exit points of these restricted areas.
Wow.
These are manned by armed government personnel. When you arrive, they will physically examine your restricted area permit, they will take your passport, they will cross-reference the name of your officially registered guide on their ledger, and your guide must physically be standing right there next to you to vouch for you.
So you really can't fake it.
It is 100% unavoidable.
Yeah.
You cannot sneak past a military checkpoint situated in a narrow Himalayan gorge at 4,000 meters.
And beyond the strict enforcement aspect, we need to talk about the profound safety logistics that necessitate this rule. Let's look at the mechanism of high-altitude emergencies.
It's serious stuff.
It really is. When a trekking agency registers your permit and assigns a guide to you, they are taking on a legally binding moral responsibility for your physical survival. Let's say you are trekking in Dolpa, multiple days away from the nearest road. You are at 5,000 meters. What happens when your body suddenly stops acclimating?
You are talking about acute mountain sickness, or AMS, which can rapidly deteriorate into high-altitude pulmonary edema, APE, or cerebral edema, HACE.
Exactly. And the terrifying thing about altitude sickness is how fast it moves.
Oh, it's incredibly fast.
It can start as a mild headache at lunch, and by dinner, your lungs are filling with fluid or your brain is swelling and you are slipping into a coma.
Yeah, it is not something you mess around with.
The only cure is immediate, rapid descent. If you are alone and you become disoriented and physically incapable of walking, you will die. Full stop.
That's the grim reality of it.
Your guide is the one equipped with the satellite communication device. Your guide has the local language skills to coordinate with a remote tea house owner. Your guide has the direct line back to the agency in Kathmandu to authorize a $10,000 helicopter rescue operation through your insurance.
Exactly. The guide is not just a trail navigator pointing out peaks. They are your triage nurse, your cultural liaison, and your ultimate safety net in an environment that actively wants to kill you.
Right.
However, since we're delving into the mechanics of safety and guides, we have to address a highly controversial new detail buried in the fine print of this policy update.
Oh, man, this part.
Yeah. It is something David Weiss heavily critiques in his travel article, and it is a fascinating administrative decision that feels entirely counterproductive to everything we just discussed about safety.
You are talking about the new group ratio. Let's tear into this because when I read this part of the update, my jaw actually dropped. It completely defies logic.
It really does. So under the old system, when you were forced to trek in groups, the maximum allowable group size ratio for a restricted area was 1 guide to 5 trekkers.
A 1-to-5 ratio. Okay.
Yeah, that means one trained professional is responsible for monitoring the health, pace, and logistics of 5 individuals.
Which seems reasonable enough.
Right. But now, hidden inside this new policy announcement that champions the solo trekker, the government has quietly expanded that maximum ratio for restricted areas to 1 guide for every 7 trekkers.
See, I need to push back hard on the logic of this from a purely logistical standpoint.
Please do.
We just talked about how fragile the environment is and how deadly altitude sickness can be. Doesn't adding 2 extra people to a single guide's responsibility fundamentally dilute the experience and create a massive glaring safety issue?
Absolutely, it does.
I mean, picture the scenario. You have a single guide leading 7 solo travelers who were pooled together by an agency. They don't know each other.
Right, they all have different fitness levels.
Exactly. Trekker A starts showing symptoms of HAPE at 5,000 meters and needs to be evacuated downward immediately. Trekker B is exhausted and moving at half speed. Trekker C feels amazing and wants to push ahead to the next pass. The guide cannot physically split into 3 people.
It creates an impossible triage scenario.
Completely impossible.
And the irony is glaring. The rest of the country, the standard non-restricted trekking zones, which are inherently safer and have way more infrastructure, still sensibly uses the standard 1-to-5 ratio.
Wait, really?
Yes. So why, in the most remote, difficult to access, and climatically challenging terrain in the entire nation, would the government increase the physical and mental burden on a single guide?
It feels like a backdoor economic concession to massive budget tour operators.
That's exactly what it feels like.
It allows an agency to maximize their profit margins by hiring fewer guides for larger conglomerates of solo travelers who just want the permit.
Exactly. And it stretches the guide's attention dangerously thin. It means less personalized time for everyone in the group, less cultural exchange, and most critically, a severely delayed reaction time if multiple people start showing symptoms of altitude sickness simultaneously.
Yeah, it's a very strange blemish on an otherwise progressive policy change.
It really is.
But, zooming out from that frustrating new ratio, we cannot lose sight of the core victory here. The removal of the 2-person minimum is still a massive, undeniable win for the individual adventurer.
Oh, absolutely. Let's not lose sight of that.
So let's look at the ripple effects. Why does this specific bureaucratic change matter so much on a global scale?
Well, if we connect this policy shift to broader, macro-level global travel trends, the impact becomes blindingly clear. The travel industry is currently experiencing an unprecedented boom in solo travel.
Oh, for sure.
It is one of the fastest-growing market segments worldwide. The modern traveler is waiting less for their friends to sync up their vacation days, their budgets, and their fitness levels.
They just want to go.
Exactly. They're simply choosing to explore the world on their own terms. Yeah. And Nepal was effectively walling off its most premium destinations from the fastest-growing demographic of travelers.
Absolutely. And think about The highly specific demographics drawn to places like Upper Mustang or the deep valleys of Kanchenjunga. You have the spontaneous, last-minute planners who see a 3-week window in their work schedule and just want to go.
Right.
You have professional landscape photographers who need to sit in one freezing spot for 4 hours waiting for the perfect alpenglow on a peak.
And they absolutely do not want a rando trekking partner tapping their watch and complaining about the delay.
Exactly. You have writers, geologists, researchers, people who traditionally operate alone. For decades, Nepal forced these people into what I can only describe as the awkward hustle.
The awkward hustle. I love that. Expand on that. What was the reality on the ground?
Oh, it was a nightmare. Before you could even think about acclimatization, you had to survive the speed dating phase. It involved frantic, desperate searches on internet forums months in advance. Or worse, you arrive in Kathmandu, you walk into the Thamel tourist district, and you are literally pinning handwritten notes to coffee shop bulletin boards.
I remember seeing those.
Saying things like, seeking trekking partner for 14-day Sum Valley expedition, must walk fast, wake up at 5 a.m., and please don't talk to me too much.
Yeah, please be invisible.
Exactly. You were essentially trying to speed date a total stranger for a grueling, multi-week physical endurance test in a freezing environment, purely to satisfy a checkpoint requirement. It ruined trips before they even started.
It was a wildly inefficient, anxiety-inducing way to operate a premium tourism sector.
It really was.
And that brings us to the economic synthesis of this change. Why this is ultimately a brilliant move for Nepal's economy. It is fundamentally a perfectly balanced win-win scenario.
How so?
By allowing solo permits, Nepal significantly lowers the psychological and logistical barrier to entry. We know from basic economic principles that lower barriers mathematically lead to increased consumer participation.
Right.
More solo travelers will now choose Nepal over places like Patagonia or the Indian Himalayas because the massive friction of finding a partner has been completely removed.
Right, so they get the volume increase. But here is the genius part. By steadfastly keeping the mandatory guide requirement in place, the government ensures that this new influx of solo foreign capital doesn't just evaporate.
Exactly.
It ensures the economic benefits are injected directly into the local infrastructure.
Yes. The money doesn't just go to an airline and a massive hotel in the capital. It flows directly into the local trekking agencies. It goes into the pockets of the licensed guides and the porters.
Right, real people.
And because guided trekkers utilize local logistics, that money subsequently trickles all the way up the mountain into the remote tea houses, the family-run lodges, and the isolated agricultural communities along these trails.
It's brilliant.
You increase the tourist volume, but you legally guarantee that the revenue supports local livelihoods rather than bypassing the local economy entirely.
It is honestly a masterclass in balancing market expansion with economic protectionism for the local workforce.
It really is.
Okay, so we have established that the rules are changing. The digital portal exists for the B2B agencies to process the paperwork. The agonizing bulletin board search for a fake trekking partner is finally over.
Thank goodness.
Right. And the economic benefits for the remote communities are clear. I'm sure right now you are sitting there listening to this, mentally auditing your gear closet and ready to book a flight to Kathmandu.
Which is the natural reaction to good news.
But, wait, hold on. Put the credit card away for just a minute.
Yes. We must inject a very heavy, very necessary dose of bureaucratic reality into the excitement.
We have an exclusive inside scoop for you on this. We actually got on the phone and spoke directly with David Ways right before we sat down to record this discussion. We wanted the absolute ground truth.
And the update he provided is absolutely critical for anyone planning a trip to Nepal in the immediate near future.
We pressed him hard on the exact timeline. We said, David, the ministry's announcement is out in the press. When can people actually call an agency, hand over their visa number, and successfully book these solo restricted area treks?
And he was incredibly clear.
He was. He warned us with absolute certainty. This rule is not in place today.
Yeah, that's the reality check.
If you call a trekking agency right this second and demand they process your solo permit for Dolpa, they cannot do it. The system will reject it.
Which is a classic, almost universal hallmark of systemic government change.
Oh, yeah.
The policy's been declared from the top down, but the actual machinery of the bureaucracy, the software, the training, the checkpoint ledgers has not yet caught up to the political declaration.
And David gave us a fantastic historical precedent to ground our expectations so we aren't just guessing here.
What was that?
He pointed back to last year when there was another major permit change. The government decided to remove a strict 10-day minimum requirement for Upper Mustang permits.
Right, I remember that.
A great change, widely announced. But from the day the announcement hit the press, it took roughly 8 full weeks to pass through all the official operational processes.
Well,
8 weeks.
8 weeks for the IT departments to rewrite the code in the portal, for the official memos to be physically distributed up the mountains to the military checkpoints, and for the agencies to be trained on the new protocol. 8 weeks from announcement to execution.
And that 8-week historical precedent brings us to a highly relevant point regarding the current geopolitical climate within Nepal right now.
Oh, this is a big one.
It adds a massive layer of crucial context to the anticipated delay. Currently, a completely new Nepali government coalition is in the process of being sworn in.
Right. The entire political deck is being reshuffled as we speak.
Think about the mechanics of a parliamentary transition. When administrations change, ministries change hands. The Minister of Home Affairs might be replaced.
Yeah.
The Director General of the Department of Immigration might be shuffled to a new department. When the leadership changes, the bureaucratic gears naturally grind to a halt, because everyone is just waiting to see who their boss is.
Exactly. Every new minister needs to be briefed. Every memo sitting on a desk gets paused. And executing a newly announced tourism policy, even a popular one, will inevitably take a backseat to more pressing national security or economic matters during the transition of power.
That makes total sense.
This political reality could easily delay that standard 8-week timeline even further.
So realistically, we are looking at a waiting game. It might be 2 months, it might be 3.
Yeah, patience is key.
But, and this is the reassuring part that you should take away from this, the ultimate authority on this matter, the Department of Immigration, has made the official, legally binding notification. The directive is out.
Yes, the wheels are in motion.
They are where the buck entirely stops for restricted area permits. So it will happen. This is not a rumor. It is not a proposal. It is an impending reality.
Exactly. We are no longer debating if this will happen. We are merely waiting on the when.
So, how do you navigate this? How do you stay updated without driving yourself crazy refreshing government portals every morning?
Don't do that.
The actionable advice here is simple. Do not act on this today. Do not book non-refundable international flights, assuming you can trek Manaslu solo next week.
Great advice.
Treat this as a confirmed policy direction, a bright green light on the horizon for the upcoming trekking seasons. To monitor exactly when the IT systems have physically switched over, when the military checkpoints have the new memos, and when local agencies are successfully printing these solo permits, David Ways will be updating his website comprehensively.
That is so helpful.
It is. That website is www.thelongestwayhome.com.
Having a reliable, deeply connected source on the ground is invaluable when you are dealing with shifting international travel regulations.
It really is the difference between a seamless trip and an absolute logistical nightmare. David will update all the affected Trek pages on his site the absolute moment he gets hard confirmation from the agencies that the system is live. In the meantime, the absolute best way to get the instantaneous alert is to watch his social media feeds. You can find him on X at the handle at TLWH or on Instagram at longestway. He has promised to post the official launch announcement the very second the rule officially kicks in on the ground.
It is the smartest way to plan without taking unnecessary financial risks.
Without a doubt. And speaking of mitigating risk and planning smartly, as we begin to wrap up today's discussion, I want to give a massive, unequivocal endorsement for David Ways and his broader work.
Oh, absolutely. His stuff is top tier.
If you are even casually considering a trip to Nepal, whether it's a restricted area or just a standard hike, his website, The Longest Way Home, and his published guidebooks are, without exaggeration, the most updated, rigorously researched, and honest travel resources in the world today.
They are basically an essential toolkit for anyone heading to the Himalayas.
Specifically, I want to shout out 2 of his books that you honestly just need to own. First, the Trekking in Nepal guidebook. It breaks down every route with astonishing detail.
Highly recommend that one.
And second, the Nepal Guide. What makes his work so vital and so different from massive corporate guidebooks is that he offers 100% independent reviews.
Which is so rare these days.
It is. There is no sponsored content. No agency can buy a positive review in his books. And critically, specifically for anyone planning a trip this year, the guide includes a fully vetted 2026 scam-free agency list.
That alone is worth the price of the book.
Oh, easily. Finding an agency you can trust with your thousands of dollars, and more importantly, with your life at 5,000 meters, is the single most important decision you will make. His list is an absolute goldmine of integrity.
It removes so much of the underlying anxiety from the planning process, allowing you to actually focus on the experience itself.
Exactly.
And, as we conclude our analysis of this massive shift in travel policy, I want to leave you with a broader, perhaps more philosophical question to mull over.
Let's hear it.
As our digital portals improve, as old restrictive rules are finally relaxed, and as the most remote, pristine, and culturally delicate corners of the Earth become increasingly accessible to the solo traveler, how do we balance the deep, incredibly personal human desire for solitary exploration with the vital, urgent need to physically and culturally protect these fragile landscapes from simply being loved to death?
That is definitely something to think about on your next hike. Thank you so much for joining us for this exploration. Keep planning, keep dreaming, and above all, keep exploring safely. We'll talk to you next time.